Welcome back to Philosophy Unpacked. Today, we are diving into a really powerful and complex chapter from Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra called Redemption.
This sounds fascinating. Redemption is a heavy word, so I'm curious to see what Nietzsche's unique perspective on it is. Where does the chapter begin?
The scene opens with Zarathustra on a great bridge, where he's surrounded by a group of beggars and cripples who have heard about his teachings.
Okay, so he's being confronted by people who are suffering. It seems like they're putting his philosophy to the test in a very direct way.
Exactly. A hunchback speaks for the group, challenging Zarathustra. He says that if Zarathustra wants them to truly believe, he must perform miracles for them.
So they're asking for a physical demonstration, like a traditional prophet. They want him to heal the blind, make the lame walk, and even fix the hunchback's own back.
That's precisely the challenge. They're essentially saying, don't just give us words, show us your power by fixing our physical bodies, and then we will believe you.
This feels like a classic test of a prophet. How does Zarathustra respond to this demand for a miracle? Does he perform one?
He does the complete opposite, and his answer is quite shocking. He says that taking away a hunchback's hump would be like taking away his spirit or identity.
That's a very counterintuitive idea. He's suggesting that a person's physical ailment is deeply connected to who they are as a person, to their very essence.
Yes, and he continues this line of thought. He suggests that giving a blind man sight might only cause him to see all the ugly and terrible things in the world, making him curse the healer.
So a supposed cure could actually lead to greater suffering. What about making the lame walk? Surely that would be a good thing, wouldn't it?
Not according to Zarathustra. He argues that if a lame man could suddenly run, his vices and bad habits would run away with him, leading to his ruin.
Wow, so he's rejecting the entire premise of physical healing as the ultimate good. He's pointing to a deeper kind of spiritual or psychological well-being instead.
He is. He says these are things the people teach, and he asks why he shouldn't also learn from the people. It's a very clever turning of the tables.
He's using their own folk wisdom against them to make a much deeper philosophical point about the nature of suffering and identity.
Correct. Then Zarathustra pivots and says that seeing people with missing limbs or eyes is actually the smallest, least troubling thing he has seen among humans.
Wait, what could possibly be worse than seeing people physically broken? That seems like a very extreme statement to make.
He introduces a concept he calls reversed cripples. These are people who lack everything except for one single, grotesquely overdeveloped part.
Reversed cripples. Can you break that down for us? What would be a modern example of something like that?
Think of a person who is nothing more than a big mouth, someone who only talks and critiques but never creates or acts. They are defined entirely by that function.
Or perhaps someone who is just a big belly, a person whose entire existence revolves around consumption, pleasure, and acquiring things with no other substance.
That's a perfect example. Zarathustra describes seeing a man who was essentially a giant ear perched on a tiny, pitiful stalk of a body.
A giant ear? What is that supposed to represent? Is this a literal vision or a metaphor for something else?
It's a powerful metaphor. The people told him this man was a genius, a great man, but Zarathustra saw him as a specialist who only listens and analyzes but lacks a complete human experience.
So this genius has an overdeveloped intellect or ability to perceive, but is underdeveloped in every other aspect of life, emotionally, physically, creatively. He's not a whole person.
Precisely. And to Zarathustra, this spiritual or psychological fragmentation is far more hideous and terrible than any physical disability he could ever encounter.
That really reframes the whole conversation. The initial challenge from the hunchback was about physical wholeness, but Zarathustra is concerned with a much deeper internal wholeness.
Indeed. After this exchange, he turns to his disciples full of sadness and tells them that walking among men feels like walking on a battlefield covered in human fragments.
That is such a bleak and powerful image. He doesn't see whole people, just scattered limbs and pieces of what a human could be.
He says this is his most unbearable trouble, seeing humanity so broken and scattered. He sees fragments and terrible chances, but no complete men, not in the present or the past.
So this isn't just a modern problem for him. He looks back through history and sees the same pattern everywhere he looks.
Yes, and he says the only way he can bear this vision is by being a seer of what is to come, a bridge to the future.
A bridge to the future? What does he mean by that? Is he talking about a utopian society or something else entirely?
He sees himself as a creator, someone whose entire purpose is to take all these fragments, riddles, and accidents and compose them into a unified whole.
So his goal is to create a new kind of human, a complete person, from the broken pieces of humanity that he sees all around him.
That's the core of his mission. He walks among men as the fragments of the future, a future that he is actively trying to bring into being.
And this is where the theme of redemption starts to become clearer. It's not about being saved by the God, but about actively creating something new.
Exactly. He then defines redemption in a very specific way. For him, redemption is the act of transforming every past event, every it was, into thus would I have it.
That's a really profound idea. He's not talking about changing the past, but about changing our relationship to it. To actively will that the past happened exactly as it did.
Yes, it's about taking ownership of your entire history, the good and the bad, and affirming it as necessary for what you are becoming. This, he says, is the job of the will.
The will is the emancipator and joy bringer. It frees us by allowing us to reframe our past. But it sounds like there's a catch coming.
There is a huge catch. He reveals that the will itself is still a prisoner. It has a fundamental limitation that causes it immense suffering.
What could possibly put the will, the great emancipator, in chains? What is this limitation he's referring to?
The will is a prisoner of time. It cannot will backwards. It cannot change what has already been done. The fact of it was is a stone it cannot move.
So our inability to undo the past is the source of the will's greatest pain. It's powerful enough to shape the future, but totally powerless against what has already occurred.
Precisely. And this powerlessness, this frustration with time, gnaws at the will. It becomes a malicious spectator of everything that has passed.
I think we can all relate to that feeling. Ruminating on past mistakes or hurts that we can't change can feel like a kind of self-torture.
Zarathustra says this frustration causes the will to become a torturer. Because it cannot go backward, it takes revenge on everything that is capable of suffering.
So this is the birth of what he calls the spirit of revenge. The will's anger against time gets projected outward as a desire to punish.
Yes, this, he declares, is revenge itself. The will's deep-seated animosity towards time and the unchangeable past, the it was.
And how does this spirit of revenge manifest in human society? Does he give examples of this?
He says it became a curse for all humanity. This spirit of revenge created the idea of penalty or punishment. It's a way of making suffering seem meaningful.
So the logic is, I am suffering because I am being punished for something in the past. It gives a reason for the pain, even if it's a negative one.
Exactly. It uses a lying word to create a good conscience. Because the willer suffers from its inability to change the past, it concludes that all life must be a penalty.
That's a very dark path. It leads to seeing existence itself as a form of punishment for some original sin or crime.
And it gets even darker. Zarathustra says this thinking leads to a kind of madness which preaches that everything perishes, therefore everything deserves to perish.
This sounds like pure nihilism. The frustration with the past and the idea of eternal penalty leads to the conclusion that life is worthless and should be destroyed.
It's the ultimate dead end. This madness preaches that justice is just time devouring its children, and that because deeds can't be undone, the penalty must be eternal.
An inescapable cycle of guilt and punishment, with no hope for deliverance.
He reminds his disciples that he led them away from these fabulous songs of madness when he taught them that the will is a creator.
Right. He's bringing it back to his central idea. The will isn't just a prisoner of the past. It's a creative force that can change our relationship to it.
He says that every it was is just a fragment and a riddle until the creating will looks at it and says, but thus would I have it, thus do I will it.
It's a powerful act of affirmation. It's not about forgetting the past or being happy about it, but about willing it as a necessary part of the whole you are creating.
It's the ultimate act of redemption, to redeem the past by incorporating it into your willed future. But then Zarathustra asks a critical question.
After laying out this incredible vision, what question does he pose? It seems like he has provided the answer.
He asks, but did the will ever speak thus? And when does this take place? He questions if the will has ever truly been freed from its own folly and the spirit of revenge.
So even for him, this is still a future goal, not a present reality. He's described the cure, but he's not sure if anyone has ever actually taken it.
He wonders who has taught the will this reconciliation with time, and something even higher than reconciliation. This higher thing, he hints, is the will to power.
The will to power. So that's the force that can not only accept the past, but actively will it. But he seems to trail off here.
He does. He asks, who has taught it also to will backwards? And at this exact moment, the text says he stops suddenly, looking deeply alarmed.
Alarmed? Why would he be alarmed by his own question? What does he see that frightens him so much?
He stares at his disciples with terror in his eyes, as if his glance is piercing their deepest, most hidden thoughts. It's a very dramatic moment.
It sounds like he's confronted by a truth so difficult that even he is shaken by it. Perhaps this idea of willing backwards implies something more.
Many scholars believe this is where he's on the verge of teaching his most difficult doctrine, the eternal recurrence, the idea that you must live your life over and over again.
And to will the past backwards would mean to will that this eternal repetition happens. To love your fate so much you would choose to live it infinitely.
That's the interpretation. But he pulls back. After a moment, he laughs and says soothingly, it is difficult to live amongst men, because silence is so difficult.
He deflects with a joke, essentially. He's acknowledging that he almost said something profound and perhaps dangerous and chose silence instead.
Yes, especially for a babbler like him. But the hunchback, who has been listening this whole time, is not fooled by this deflection.
The hunchback speaks up again. What does he say after hearing this incredibly deep and personal sermon, not meant for him?
He looks up and asks a very sharp question. But why does Zarathustra speak otherwise unto us than unto his disciples?
He noticed the difference. Zarathustra gave the crowd a simple proverbial answer, but he gave his disciples this deep, tormented philosophical exploration.
Zarathustra gives a witty, dismissive reply. What is there to be wondered at? With hunchbacks, one may well speak in a hunchbacked way.
That's a bit of a cruel joke. He's saying he speaks to people on their own level, using twisted language for a twisted back.
The hunchback accepts this, saying, very good, and with pupils one may well tell tales out of school. He's acknowledging the private teaching. But he doesn't stop there, does he? The chapter ends with one final, piercing question from the hunchback that really gets to the heart of it.
He delivers the final line. But, he asks, does Zarathustra speak otherwise unto his pupils than unto himself?
Wow, that is an incredibly perceptive question. He's suggesting that there's yet another level of truth that Zarathustra keeps hidden, even from his closest followers.
It implies Zarathustra's own inner struggle. The terror he felt moments ago was a glimpse into a truth he himself is still wrestling with and isn't ready to share.
So the chapter ends by revealing that even the great teacher Zarathustra is fragmented. He has a public face, a private face for his students, and a secret face for himself.
Exactly. The Redeemer is himself in need of redemption. He is also a fragment, a bridge, and a cripple on that bridge still struggling with his own most difficult ideas.
Let's go back to the reversed cripples for a moment. This idea seems so relevant today. Can we explore some more examples?
Absolutely. Think about the culture of social media. You might have someone who's a big eye. They consume content endlessly, watching others live, but they produce nothing themselves.
That's a great modern analogy. They have an overdeveloped sense of watching and judging, but their own capacity for action or creation is atrophied, almost non-existent.
Another example could be the hyper-specialized academic. They might be the world's foremost expert on a single tiny subject, a giant brain in one area, but lack common sense or emotional intelligence.
They're not a whole person. They are, as Zarathustra puts it, a piteously small and poor stock supporting this one immense overdeveloped part. It's a critique of extreme specialization.
It is. Nietzsche's goal is the overman or superman, who represents the opposite of this, a whole person who has integrated all their faculties, body, mind, and spirit.
So the redemption he talks about is not just redeeming the past, but also redeeming humanity from this state of fragmentation into a new state of wholeness.
That's the ultimate project, to create a future where people are no longer scattered fragments, but are unified, complete beings who can affirm their entire existence.
And the key to that is the creative will, which can look at all of history, all of personal experience, and say, yes, I willed it to be so.
It's an incredibly demanding philosophy. It asks you to become the creator of your own values and the redeemer of your own past without any external help.
And that final scene with the hunchback shows just how difficult that is, even for the one proposing the idea.
The struggle is real and ongoing.
It makes Zarathustra a more human and relatable figure. He isn't a perfect prophet with all the answers. He's a fellow struggler on the path.
Let's clarify the spirit of revenge again. So when someone holds a grudge for years over something someone did to them, is that an example?
That is a perfect everyday example. The will is gnashing its teeth at the it was, the past it can't change. The grudge is the will taking revenge because it's powerless.
And it poisons the present moment. The person holding the grudge is trapped in that past event, unable to move forward because their will is a prisoner.
Yes, and they might create a whole narrative of penalty around it, saying the other person deserves to suffer. This is the will creating a good conscience for its own desire for revenge.
So Zarathustra's solution is to have the creative will say, I needed that event to happen to become who I am today. Thus, I willed it.
It's a radical reframing. It's not forgiveness in the traditional sense, but a powerful act of integration. It transforms a source of pain into a source of strength.
This really changes the meaning of redemption from something passive, like being saved, to something incredibly active and creative. It's about self-overcoming.
That is the heart of Nietzsche's entire philosophy. We are not here to be judged or saved, but to create and overcome, to become the poets of our own lives.
And to become whole individuals, not these reversed cripples that society so often encourages us to be through specialization and consumerism.
A challenging but ultimately life-affirming message. It places the power and the responsibility for a meaningful life squarely back into our own hands.
It's a heavy responsibility, and as the chapter shows, even Zarathustra himself finds it difficult to bear at times. A truly profound piece of writing.
It certainly is. And the chapter's ending reminds us that the journey of self-discovery has layers, and there are always deeper truths we are not yet ready to face.
A perfect place to end our discussion for today. This chapter gives us so much to think about regarding our own relationship to the past and our potential for the future.
Thank you for joining us on Philosophy Unpacked. We encourage everyone to reflect on these ideas of redemption and wholeness in their own lives.